Hi ladies and gentlemen, welcome to SA Accounting Academy. Here's a short clip on one of our previous webinars. I hope that you really do enjoy it.
Good day ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the monthly compliance legislation update for February 2019. On behalf of the South African Accounting Academy, my name is Lettie, Janse van Vuuren, and I will be your facilitator for the next 2 hours. On the agenda, you'll see this is where we follow exactly the order of the material. So we've got under accounting, we have 2 items. Under auditing and other assurance services, only 2 items this month, nothing much happening in the auditing field now. Company secretarial, 5 items there. Employment law, big topic this month and this year so far, 7 items. Then under other laws and regulations, we've got 5 items there. Under tax, remember last month we had almost nothing. I think we had about 7. And I told you it was going to come in Feb, so we've got 18 items under taxation, 13 items under regulator news. And the regulator news are normally from the professional bodies and with whatever very important information they've got. Under general announcements or news releases, I've just got for one very important topic there. It does relate to an update to the Tax Amendment Act, and it relates specifically to tax invoices. Right, the Act actually made it easier now for vendors to reissue legally, to reissue tax invoices legally. All right, so that's what we'll be looking at in much more detail. Let's get straight into the accounting update for this month, and we're going to start off with Circular 5 of 2018. Circular 5 2018 was issued by SAICA in December, and it deals with leases, right? So it deals with IFRS 16 leases, and it deals with how to recognize your lease income and expenses on a basis that is not a straight line basis under IFRS 16. So if you do not use the straight line basis, what do you need to do here? Right. So that's exactly it. You'll see that it addresses how we recognize that, okay? And it specifically how we recognize it for lessors, where the appropriate lease classification is an operating lease, and for lessees where they've elected not to apply the lease model in IFRS 16. Right. So that's going to be very relevant where your underlying asset value is low or for short-term leases. For that purpose, IFRS 16 then presumes that the reporting entity has concluded that the arrangement, whether it's either a lessee or a lessor, meets the definition of a lease in IFRS 16. Okay. So you'll see here that SAICA normally issues these circulars to communicate certain information or to inform members of relevant accounting, auditing, legislation, financial reporting, and other developments, and in some instances to provide guidance. So this literally is a guidance document. And Circular 5 has been updated now. The previous one was on operating leases, and that was done in 2006, way back when. So this circular does replace Circular 12, 2006. And if I can quickly refer you to some of the webinar material for some detail, let's see. There we go, Circular 5. Okay, and then I've got, under the content side, I've got some definitions. The conclusions here are quite important, right? And then I've said at the bottom of your screen there, the circular is available to you as a source document. And if you go to your slide, back to the slide, you'll see that the circular is available as a source document. Not a very long one, only 4 pages long. So those of you that do deal with it, remember IFRS 16, as we'll see now, is effective already. Okay. So let's move on to our next accounting topic, which is IFRS 16, which is now effective. This was a document that was issued by the on the IASB's website. So I went to ifrs.org and I saw that they issued this on the 8th of January to say that IFRS 16 was issued in January 3 years ago already. It's effective for annual reporting periods starting on or after 1 January 2019. It does replace the old IAS 17 on leases and all the related interpretations, so all your IFRIC statements as well, or your 6 as well. What happens here is IFRS 16 does change the accounting substantially for lessees. For lessors, it's much of a muchness. If you leased it out before, you lease it out again, and it remains the same. What the new standard does is it eliminates the lessee's classification of leases as either operating lease versus finance lease. Right. So almost all the leases under the new standard are capitalized. So therefore, we need to recognize a lease liability. There's a right of use asset on the balance sheet. And meanwhile, like I told you, for lessors, not much difference there. Leasing is a very common form of finance, and that's why I think this is so important to just note. Because it is a common form of finance, they did issue an effects analysis, right, which you can find on the website as well. You will be able to find that. But the analysis looked at, and they estimated as well, that listed companies around the world would have around about $3 trillion worth of future payments for leases. And those were not recognized on the balance sheet applying the previous accounting requirements. So remember that this is going to be a huge changer the first year that you implement this, because the future lease payments or the future payments for leases is now going to show up on the balance sheet. So it'll affect everything. It might affect solvency, it might affect liquidity. So in the first year we might have that the non-comparability because it's the first year that you apply the new IFRS 16. Right. On the last bullet point, it just says the IFRS 16 will increase the visibility of companies' lease commitments and also better reflect economic reality. It does make it easier for users to compare companies that lease their assets with companies that borrow money to buy their assets. Right, so it's all about providing information to the user of the financial statements so that they can make their economic decisions. If you move to the material, you'll see on the last bit of the slide there I said, access the IASB supporting material on IFRS 16, right? So on that side, if you go to your material, there we go, you'll see there's IFRS 16 on leases with a link, right? I have downloaded it, it's just the standard. Now you've got to be registered on the website, so you can simply just log in and register. No problem, and then you can download the supporting material. The supporting material goes back, I think the most recent piece of material on there is more or less, I think, October 2017. So I looked at those and it's more of a how the project progressed, okay. I think the standard and some of the summaries that I found are much more viable, right. But it's important for your clients, especially the ones who lease out the assets, that they train all their people to make sure that they are already using the new standard, which is effective for annual reporting periods starting on or after the 1st of January. So the ones with the December year end, those are effective now. If it's a March or a Feb year end, it will only be effective for them starting then on the 1st of March. Right. Let's move on to auditing and other assurance services. Back to the slides. And we've only got two items here. The first one looks at a document that IRBA sent out, a reminder, just saying, remember, we just want to remind all the auditors and others that there are certain emails that were issued in 2018, or communiques, right? Communiques that were issued in 2018 with submissions on due dates that are due in 2019. So they issued this to everybody on the 15th of January, and just to make sure that where they need to respond, they can respond. So if you want to quickly refer to the material, you'll see there's a little table in there with the 6 standards listed on there, right, or the communiques. Proposed amendments to section 321 on second opinions, right, that was issued there, and you'll see some of these dates have already passed. The majority of them still need to be replied to IRBA by the end of Feb, and there's the last 2 in March, right. You'll remember last month we spoke about this proposed guide for registered auditors on the fresh produce agents trust accounts, right. So what I've done on this as well is I've left the links in as well. So if you want to move into that, it actually takes you to the communique on IRBA's website, right, if you still want to comment on that. Otherwise, don't worry. Shortly after the comment period closes, I will be monitoring IRBA's website to make sure when the new guides or the new standards or international standards, the new ISRS 4400 on agreed upon procedures.
I hope that you enjoyed that video. For more of our webinar videos, go to www.accountingacademy.co.za. Thank you and have a lovely day.